Some moments in life are so unexpected that they shatter everything you thought you knew. You hear stories, watch them unfold in movies, and think to yourself, that happens to other people, not to me. But then one day, reality proves you wrong. That day on the ranch, it changed my life forever. My name is Elaine. I'm 52 years old, and a few years ago I lost my husband, Robert. He was the love of my life, and his absence still aches like an unhealed wound. But life moves forward, and we do our best to keep up, or at least try. Luckily, my son Mia has been my anchor. He's 30, brilliant, kind-hearted, and dedicated to his work as a software developer. He recently got married to Alexis, a vibrant and ambitious woman who shares his passion for life. They've been together for 4 years now, and I've never had a reason to doubt their happiness. But sometimes the most shocking revelations begin when everything appears to be perfect. A few weeks ago, I decided to visit my family's old ranch. It was more than just land to me. It held the echoes of my childhood and memories of the life Robert and I built together. Since his passing, the place had been neglected, so I decided it was time to restore it. I invited Mia and Alexis along, hoping to blend work with a bit of family bonding. At first, everything seemed normal. When Mia and Alexis arrived, they were as cheerful and affectionate as always. Mia was ready to help with repairs, and Alexis, with her usual lively energy, jumped right in. But something was off that weekend. Something I couldn't ignore. It began subtly. A glance held a second too long. A silence that felt heavier than it should. A moment of hesitation that made no sense. From the outside, it was nothing, barely noticeable. But I saw it, I felt it. At first, I convinced myself I was imagining things. Maybe I was overanalyzing. Maybe my loneliness was clouding my judgment. But no, my instincts weren't wrong. That weekend, everything changed. The morning started like any other. The ranch had its endless demands, repairs, cleaning, organizing. Mia was busy fixing a broken fence on the far side of the property, and every now and then Alexis would call out to him. But instead of his usual patience, he responded with clipped words and distracted nods. Inside, I took to dusting off the bookshelf, lost in the pages of forgotten novels and family keepsakes. That's when I sensed it again, the feeling that something was shifting, that something was slipping through the cracks of our ordinary lives. I turned around and there was Alexis, standing in the doorway, watching me with an expression I couldn't quite place. It wasn't discomfort, nor was it sadness. It was something deeper, something unspoken. "You okay?" I asked, keeping my tone light. She hesitated before answering, then nodded. "Yeah, just thinking." But it was more than that. I could feel it in the way she lingered, in the way her eyes flickered, with a hesitation that felt almost like longing. The weight of that weekend settled into my chest like a secret waiting to be uncovered. And as the days passed, I realized something I never could have imagined. That weekend, something between Alexis and me shifted. It was hard to put into words, even harder to understand. But what I do know is that for the first time in my life, I regretted returning to the ranch. Because that day something happened that changed everything. "Mom, is everything okay?" Mia called from the porch. I waved at her through the window and called back, "Everything's fine, sweetie." And it was fine, or at least it seemed that way. But just then Alexis walked in. He wore a gray t-shirt, his hands tucked into his pockets, carrying that usual air of confidence. Stopping in the doorway, he fixed his eyes on me. "You're really getting into this, Elaine," he said with a smirk. "Someone has to," I replied with a shrug, sliding an old book back onto the shelf. Dust floated in the beams of sunlight, catching my eye as I glanced toward the top shelf. It must have been years since it had last been cleaned. Without much thought, I dragged the ladder over and propped it against the bookshelf. Instead of leaving, Alexis stayed where he was, lingering in the middle of the room. As I climbed the ladder, I muttered under my breath, "Just need to stretch a little higher." That's when it hit me. I was wearing a light skirt. The realization sent a flicker of discomfort through me, knowing Alexis was standing right below. I kept my focus on the top steps of the ladder, trying to ignore the way his presence unsettled me. Still, I couldn't help but glance down for just a second. His eyes were on me. As I reached for the dusty books, Alexis's voice rose from below. "Hold on, Elaine. Let me hold the ladder, just to make sure it's safe." "No need, Alexis. It's solid," I assured him, but by then he had already stepped forward, gripping both sides of the ladder firmly, almost as if he were protecting me. The unease in my chest grew, but I couldn't bring myself to say anything. As I reached further for the books in the top corner, his grip remained firm. There was no real reason for him to hold the ladder anymore, yet he didn't let go. He just stood there, steady, watching me. Finally, I placed the last book back, exhaling in relief. "All right, job's done." My hands were coated in dust, and I was eager to climb down. Step by step, I descended, but Alexis's eyes never left me. It was as if he was tracking my every movement, his expression unreadable. When I reached the last step, I found myself face to face with him. "You did a great job," he said, his voice low, calm, but something was hidden in his tone. "Oh, just a couple of dusty books," I said, attempting to laugh it off. But my smile faltered as I caught the look in his eyes. It wasn't amusement, it was something deeper, intense, unreadable. I had never really looked at Alexis this closely before. His features were sharp, but his gaze, it was too intense. A sudden warmth washed over me, unexpected and unsettling. My heartbeat picked up, not from fear, but from something else. Something I didn't want to name. It felt familiar yet unfamiliar, a tangled mix of curiosity and guilt. Alexis's lips twitched as if he was about to say something, but before he could, Mia's voice rang from outside. "Mom, Alexis, I made tea. We should take a break." The door creaked open and Mia walked in, balancing a pitcher and a few glasses in her hands. She was all energy, her usual lively self, instantly breaking the tension in the room. "Oh, the old bookshelf's finally done," she said cheerfully. "Mom, let Alexis help you relax. I'll finish up the sanding and then I'll help." Alexis took a small step back, his expression shifting as he turned to Mia with a slight smile. "Elaine already did an amazing job. I think she should just take over the whole thing." Mia laughed, shaking her head at his teasing comment. I, on the other hand, quickly focused on brushing the dust from my hands. The change in atmosphere was exactly what I needed. an escape from whatever had just happened. But deep down, something was still stirring. Alexis's gaze, that brief moment of silence, had left a mark inside me. I heard Alexis jokingly say, "Well, who's making the tea?" But my mind was still scattered, struggling to pull itself together. I grabbed the tea tray from Mia's hands and said, "You handle your work outside. I'll take care of the tea." But as I walked toward the kitchen, I couldn't shake the look on Alexis's face. I was angry at myself. Feeling like this about my daughter-in-law was completely unacceptable. But no matter how much I tried to deny it, the feeling had already taken root inside me. Life on the ranch was getting far more complicated than I had imagined. As I arranged the tea glasses on the tray, my thoughts refused to settle. My hands were trembling, but I blamed it on exhaustion. "Stop overthinking, Elaine," I told myself. But at that moment, I noticed Alexis standing in the kitchen doorway. "Let me help," she said, walking toward me, her eyes searching mine. "No need. I've got it under control," I responded a bit too quickly. But Alexis was already beside me. She carefully looked over the glasses, picked one up, and moved toward the kettle. "Did you fill the kettle yourself?" "You always make the tea just right," she said, as if it were casual conversation, but her voice was too close, too soft. "Well, years of practice," I replied, trying to smile but feeling oddly nervous. We stood next to each other, and then her arm brushed against mine. It was a small touch, but my body reacted unexpectedly. I stepped back to put the teaspoon in the sink. Just then, Alexis moved as well. I hadn't realized she was right behind me. As I turned, we nearly collided. "Oh," I gasped, losing my balance and instinctively leaning into Alexis's chest. Her hands came around my waist, steadying me. "Careful, Elaine," she said, her voice low, different. My eyes locked onto her face. The closeness between us felt too real, too intimate. My heart pounded. "You're still tired, I guess," Alexis said, watching me closely. "No, just spaced out for a second," I mumbled, quickly pulling away. Alexis also stepped back, but the air in the room had completely shifted. Trying to calm my racing heart, I grabbed the tray. Right then, Mia's voice called from the living room. "Mom, is the tea ready?" "Alexis, hurry up, I want to show you a few things." With Mia's voice, everything seemed to go back to normal. Alexis gave a slight smile. "Let's not keep Mia waiting, then." As she headed for the door, she cast me one last glance. I arranged the glasses on the tray, my hands still trembling. I had no idea what any of this meant. I wasn't even sure if it meant anything at all, but I could feel that something had changed. I grabbed the tray and made my way to the living room. Mia greeted me with her usual bright smile. Alexis sat next to her, looking fully engaged in whatever Mia was saying. But me? I felt like I had crossed some kind of invisible line without even realizing it. Not yet. The next morning, as Mia walked toward the garden, excitement radiated from her. She wandered among the flowers, gently brushing each one with her hands. "Mom, these flowers are so beautiful. But look, some of them are starting to wilt. I can't stand seeing them like this," she said, a hint of sadness in her voice. "I haven't been able to take care of them for a few seasons," I admitted. "The farm work and, well, time." Mia stayed quiet for a moment, still looking at the flowers. Then suddenly she turned and said, "I'm going to the city to get some new flowers. I want to bring this garden back to its old self." "Now?" I asked, surprised. "Yep, we'll get it done before the day is over. I'll be back by tonight," she said, heading toward the car. I watched her go, a strange mix of relief and unease settling inside me. Maybe some time apart would help clear my thoughts. Maybe, just maybe, I could shake this growing feeling before it turned into something I could no longer control. Mia called out to Alexis to see if he was coming, but he simply raised his hands and smiled. "I'll stay here. I'll help your mom," he said. Mia gave the garden one last look before happily jumping into the car and driving off. As she disappeared down the road, the farm sank back into silence, the soft hum of the evening settling over the land. I sat by the fireplace, carefully arranging pieces of firewood. The cool air had begun creeping into the house, and nothing sounded better than the comfort of a warm fire. Adjusting my skirt slightly, I crouched down, lost in thought as the flames flickered before me. For a moment I wanted to forget everything, to let the warmth of the fire pull me into a place where my mind could rest. I didn't even hear the door creak open, but suddenly a voice behind me sent a gentle jolt through my body. "You know, as beautiful as this farm is, you are just as beautiful." My breath caught instantly. It was Alexis's voice. My hands tightened around the firewood as I braced my arms on my knees, trying to steady myself before straightening up. My movements were slow, almost hesitant, as if I were frozen in place. "Alexis, you scared me," I said, forcing a nervous smile but still not turning around. My voice felt thin, the weight of his words lingering in the air between us. Alexis took a few steps closer. "Sorry, I didn't mean to startle you. It's just seeing you like this, so natural, so different." His voice was soft but carried a strange intensity, something unreadable that made my pulse quicken. I hesitated, gripping the fireplace grate as if I were simply tidying up, using the task as an excuse to avoid his gaze. "Come on, Alexis, it's just the state of an old farm. There's nothing on me but dust." I attempted to laugh, but my voice betrayed me. Beneath my words, something else was rising. Something unfamiliar yet undeniable. Alexis didn't move away. Instead, he remained standing behind me, close enough that I could feel his presence like a whisper against my skin. "I don't think you even realize it," he murmured, his voice low and deliberate. I swallowed hard. Realize what? Finally, I sat up straight and turned slightly to face him. The moment our eyes met, I knew I couldn't avoid it any longer. Alexis's gaze was different, intense, focused, and unyielding. It felt like he was pushing a boundary neither of us had acknowledged before. "You're beautiful," he said simply, a slight smile tugging at his lips. "I didn't think you'd be this strong, this impressive." Before I could process his words, Alexis stepped forward and pulled me toward him by the waist. I barely had a moment to react before his lips met mine. The world around us seemed to slow, and I found myself kissing him back without hesitation. His touch, his warmth, his presence, everything else melted away as we lost ourselves in the moment. The fire flickered beside us, casting golden light across the room, turning each kiss into something deeper, something more consuming. By the time we reached the couch, we were both breathless. Clothes were abandoned in a scattered trail on the floor, each layer falling away as if it were meant to happen. Alexis's hands explored my body with a tenderness that sent shivers through me, his every touch setting the fire inside me ablaze. The bond between us tightened, drawing us closer with every kiss, every whisper against my skin. The glow of the fireplace wrapped around us, making the moment feel even more surreal, more intimate. Our bodies moved together as if they had known each other in another lifetime, as if this was something inevitable. When it was over, we lay side by side on the couch, our breathing the only sound filling the silence. Neither of us spoke for what felt like an eternity. 30 seconds of stillness, of unspoken words and lingering tension. I felt calm yet restless, peaceful yet shaken to my core. Without saying anything, I finally rose from the couch and made my way to the bathroom. The cold shower water hit my skin, jolting me back to reality. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't wash away what had just happened. Alexis's hands, his voice, his gaze, they all echoed in my mind, refusing to fade. I closed my eyes, letting the water run over me, but it did nothing to cleanse the guilt creeping into my chest. Even after I stepped out, wrapping myself in a towel, I still couldn't shake the weight of it. The coldness of the water had done nothing to cool the fire that had ignited inside me. I felt dirty, not from the dust of the farm, not from the sweat on my skin, but from the undeniable truth that settled deep in my bones. I had done something I could never take back. That moment with Alexis felt like all my walls had come down, but was it right? Especially with all of this happening while Mia, his daughter, was home, questions gnawed at me, filling my mind with doubt. When I returned to my room, I heard a faint sound from Mia's room, and a heavy weight settled in my chest. My daughter had come home. Her silence likely meant she had noticed my mood. I wondered what she was thinking, but her quietness felt like a sign of trust. I knew I should avoid getting too close to Alexis, but how? When Mia went to bed without saying a word, I took a deep breath. For a moment, I closed my eyes and thought about how she should never know about my relationship with Alexis. The guilt inside me swelled even more. A few days passed, and Mia began to sense the awkwardness between Alexis and me. She noticed my morning tension and how Alexis had grown quieter in the evenings. The strange distance between us raised questions in her mind. One morning at the breakfast table, Mia suddenly asked, "Mom, is there something going on between you and Alexis? You two seem a little weird." I took a sip of tea and let out a deep breath. I didn't want to meet my daughter's eyes. The chaos in my mind was intensifying, and the guilt in my chest was suffocating. "No, Mia," I said, forcing myself to steady my voice. "Everything's fine. Sometimes people act strange, but it's just a phase." Mia noticed the unease in my eyes, but chose to believe me. She had always known her mother as strong and in control. Despite the doubt flickering in her gaze, she decided to accept that nothing was wrong. Yet in that moment, the guilt inside me grew even deeper. I couldn't bear to break Mia's trust, but denying my feelings was becoming harder by the day. Time passed, and a distance grew between Alexis and me. That unforgettable moment had become a torment, replaying in my mind daily. The confusion in my heart only deepened, trapping me in a constant battle between desire and guilt. I hadn't said anything to avoid hurting Mia, but every night when I closed my eyes, I felt the weight of this secret crushing me. Each morning, I woke up hoping the turmoil would ease, but instead it clung to me, making every interaction with Alexis more strained. One evening, as I sat alone in the living room of my farmhouse, I asked myself again, should I tell Mia everything or keep it hidden? A hollow void formed inside me. The fear of losing my daughter and the guilt of what had happened with Alexis left me powerless to find an answer. If I confessed, would Mia understand? Or would it shatter the bond we shared? If I kept it hidden, would the burden of secrecy eventually tear me apart? Every possible outcome felt wrong, leaving me stranded in an emotional limbo. If you've made it this far, I know my story has touched you. There's so much more to share, and you won't want to miss what happens next. Don't forget to hit that follow button, turn on notifications, and leave a comment about this story. I can't wait to hear your thoughts, so let's chat in the comments. Your support means the world to me. Hello everyone, and welcome to our channel where we bring you emotional and thought-provoking stories. Today we share the story of Ethan, a devoted single father who has endured unimaginable hardships while raising his twin daughters. My name is Ethan. My wife passed away while giving birth to our two daughters, leaving behind a void that I have never been able to fill. Since that day, I have played the role of both father and mother to Olivia and Elisa. They are so alike that I sometimes have trouble telling them apart. Olivia, the older twin, is calm and thoughtful, while Elisa is energetic, always full of life and laughter. Life has not been easy, but watching my girls grow has given me a reason to keep pushing forward. I have done my best to give them a fulfilling childhood despite the absence of their mother's emotional support. Over the years, I had only one wish: to see them grow into good and happy women. Now, at 22 years old, Olivia and Elisa have become intelligent, accomplished young women. I was proud of them, but I never expected that one day they would repay me in a way that was beyond my imagination. It was an unusual evening. Instead of returning home at my usual late hour, work had ended early for once. Relieved, I eagerly made my way home, looking forward to an evening of rare relaxation. However, as I reached the house, I noticed that the front door was slightly ajar, something that never happened. A strange feeling crept into my chest. I hesitated for a moment before gently pushing the door open. As soon as I stepped inside, laughter echoed from the living room. It wasn't the familiar sound of my daughters watching a movie or chatting with friends. There was an unfamiliar voice, a man's voice. I froze in place, straining to listen. A mix of Olivia's chuckles and Elisa's excited giggles filled the air, making my heart pound harder. Unease gripped me as I walked cautiously toward the living room, my steps feeling heavier with each passing second. When I reached the doorway, the sight before me sent a jolt of shock through my body. Olivia, the daughter I had loved and raised, was there with Elisa and an unknown young man. all three completely unclothed, seemingly lost in their own world, oblivious to their surroundings. My mind went blank, my emotions freezing in place before a surge of uncontrollable anger erupted within me. "What is this?" I roared, my voice shattering the atmosphere of the room. The three of them jolted out of their trance. The young man scrambled to gather his clothes, his hands trembling as he tried to dress under my burning gaze.